Hi, welcome to another night. It's the Melody Burns Show, the voice of freedom. And tonight we have to cover a number of topics. We're going to, again, cover the topic of the missing airplane. Where has it gone? What do you think about it? What's really going on with that story? Why aren't we getting the truth? My first guest, Tom Ruskin, who is a former New York PD detective investigator, president now of CMP Group. You know, I looked at this guy's resume, and I have to tell you, he is very, very qualified to talk about national and international security. The firm that he has now, CMP Group, this is what they do, investigations, provide security. But in the past, Tom has provided security and, been involved in a number of things, both on a national level, helping out presidents, first ladies, and a number of other dignitaries. So he very much, he's in tune to what's going on, has his ear to the ground, so to speak, and I know he can speak to this issue. Let me welcome Tom to the show. And we're going to pick his brain a little bit about what's going on with this. What do you think is going on with this, and why is it taking us so much time to get answers?
Well, the reason it's taking us so much time is because us is not in charge of the investigation. It's a Malaysian investigation, and the U.S. is only acting as in a support role. And that's part of the frustration here. The frustration is that we had 3 Americans on this plane that is now missing. And why is it missing? It appears now to be a criminal act. And what's going to be done?
Well, I mean, because it's listed as a criminal act, that's entirely different than if it was listed as an act of terrorism, right?
Well, we don't know. I mean, an act of terrorism is a criminal act. We don't know the extent of the criminal act yet. We don't know if people in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, were able to smuggle things onto the plane. We do know that 2 of the people who were on the plane were with stolen passports, even though we don't know if they had any relation to what's happened to the Malaysian Air 360. And we don't know exactly where that plane went down. Did it land or did it crash? Or was it purposely crashed? Which, is the latter is the least of my suspicions, because if one of the pilots or both of the pilots wanted to crash that plane, they could have crashed it right then and there, and that would have been the end of it. But they didn't. They flew it for hours from what we're seeing. The 2 guys who got on with stolen passports. Both those passports were reported stolen in Thailand, and Interpol had those passports in their system. So the question you ask yourself, or I ask myself, is after 9/11, what has international governments learned from it, and what are they doing to implement the lessons learned from 9/11? Well, obviously, in Malaysia, it doesn't matter if you get on the plane with a stolen passport. There's no cross-reference to stolen passports and the people entering the plane. Secondly, we know that those 2 gentlemen who got onto the plane got on with a one-way ticket, another red flag, got on with a ticket that was paid for in cash, again, another sign from 9/11, and 4, it wasn't paid for by them. Whoever paid for it was an Iranian guy who paid for these 2 guys to get on, one-way tickets, cash, stolen passports. Why was they grabbed off of that plane? That's first. Where the plane is yet to be determined, and, did it crash, did it run out of gas and crash, or is it, landed somewhere for a possible attack in the future? That's yet to be seen. We know that the plane can fly 7,000 miles. Considering the continental United States, just to put it in perspective, from New York to LA, it's a little over 3,000. It's double that distance plus. It can fly 6 to 8 hours. So the radius to search is incredible in that area of the world. So if that happened in the United States, I would venture to guess that every area airport in the area in which that plane took off would automatically be shut down, if not all our airspace, like 9/11. Secondly, the government of Malaysia has come out and said that they believe that this was a purposeful criminal act, yet they can't figure out how this act was perpetrated yet. Why are they still flying? Why is the Kuala Lumpur airport still open? Why is Malaysia Air still in the air? We don't know if someone smuggled weapons, guns, explosives onto that plane. It was not one or two people who carried this out. 6 transponders, different areas of the plane. You need to shut them off individually. The car system, which is a system that transmits normally once an hour the altitude, the height, the altitude, the longitude, and the direction and the speed of that plane, was also purposely shut off right after they said goodbye to Malaysian air space or their controllers, where they should have switched over to Vietnam before moving through Vietnam into China, heading up to Beijing. All these are warning signs of a potential terrorist action or a criminal act at this point in time. As I said earlier on another station and another broadcast, we know that flight data recorders only record up to 2 hours. That's how long the hard drive is, because most catastrophic events or terrorist actions happen within 2 hours, and whatever happens within that 2 hours. And it may have flown 6 or 8 hours. Even if we come up with the plane and the data recorders, it may not lend us the information that we would necessarily like to have of what happened on that plane. It may have been rewritten over. We're 10, moving into 11 days after this catastrophic event, whatever it was, and there's not much more information known. The other thing that comes to my mind is, why did it take government officials in Malaysia almost 9 to 10 days to seize the computers and to raid the houses of the 2 pilots? And, I don't know what kind of background information is being done on every passenger on that plane, but I would like to know every single person who worked on that plane, every person who came in contact with any passenger on that plane. What was in the cargo hold? What kind of cargo was on that plane? We have no idea what that is, and we may not purposely know what's the answers to that, but I would hope that a governmental agency, an investigative agency, has those answers.
We were told there's 25 countries involved in this mission, whether it's rescue or whatever it is, search. But it seems like we're not really sharing, and I got the impression that the reason they're not sharing as openly is because nobody wants to tell anyone else what their capabilities are. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that. I would assume that a portion of the intelligence that a country may have, they may not want to share readily with another country to show what their capabilities are. But we're dealing with human tragedy here, and you're dealing with an aircraft that may have taken 239 human lives from all over our world. I think we have to do everything in our power to maybe not share the total intelligence or how you know it, but I think at a certain point in time, this is humanistic too. And you have to put it in those terms and make sure that we get to the bottom of this and understand what happened. If we have an aircraft that's been diverted and potentially going to be used in the future for a terrorist attack, it would be terrible if some government wasn't sharing at this point in time. Just because it's not there doesn't mean that they don't know it. And I've been involved in enough investigations and stuff in my life that, sometimes what's not public doesn't mean that some government or they're not sharing. The lessons learned from 9/11 were not practiced that day relative to the 2 Iranian men that got on. And we don't know what else happened that day. I think that some of the lessons that are being learned from this is about transponders. Maybe you make it so that they can't be shut off, because why would they have to be? The second thing is some other type of transmission system. And then, you have to look at the people flying the plane. They're locked in that cockpit. And if they have the intent, like they did on that Egyptian aircraft, where the pilot purposely crashed the plane into the ocean, what are we going to do in the future towards that? But these are all unanswered questions that are going to have to be part of future terroristic and terrorism studies.
is there a way as Americans for us to find that information out? You know, do they in fact do have security as strong as we do, or close, you know, close enough to it so you feel a little bit of safety?
Well, the simple answer to that is any American or anyone in the world can go on to the U.S. State Department's website, and they have travel advisories, and they have travel alerts, and they update these things very, very well. Our government is really phenomenal at updating that website to tell you that there's unrest in Cairo, or there's this going on in, you know, the Ukraine at this point in time, and they put travel advisories. The same thing, what we may have to look towards is, you know, an extension of this website. Which are the safest airports to fly out of?
Yeah.
What you should be looking for. Kuala Lumpur, in the past, Malaysia has been a relatively safe, you know, place to go to. I mean, it's not the most sophisticated country, Malaysia, but it's not, you know, it's not an antiquated country. And, you know, listen, Malaysia had a phenomenal safety record up until now. And this plane, the 777, is a very safe plane to fly. So, you know, there may be an expansion of alerts and the way that you can check places to go through, so you don't go to Kuala Lumpur, you go to Dubai, or you go somewhere else in that area to fly out of if you're going to go to Beijing, or you go up to Hong Kong or Macau. But, you know, it's something we learn from everything that happens in our world. And our government has been pretty good at updating those things. But the U.S. government website for the State Department is very good with their travel advisories.